It has been a wild week, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously went to the NFL draft, but we've done 11 Dynasty rookie drafts. I have been tinkering with my Dynasty rankings on flogfantasy.com literally nonstop. We've broken down maybe 10 Dynasty teams over the past 24 hours in podcast. We're going to be looking at another 5 or 6, trying to come up with some updated Dynasty rookie draft strategy for very specific league formats and rosters. That way we can give real examples, right? Okay, if your team looks like this, maybe you really need a running back. What should we be doing at the 104? So before we get into this, make sure you're dropping a like on this video. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, of course. And if you want to get your Dynasty Fantasy Football team broken down on a podcast or in a live stream like this, by yours truly. If you want my updated Dynasty rankings, if you want the updated Dynasty rookie ADP from those 11 rookie drafts that I've already completed, you can find all of that on flogfantasy.com. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 2-day free trial. If you like it enough to make a purchase, which I promise you will, you're also going to get 30% off any subscription, and promo code FLOCK will be how you get your team on a podcast just like this, or video, whatever it is. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our first team here. This one coming out from Distraction. Thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the Flock and supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. It says, hey, Mason, 12-team Superflex half PPR tight end premium format. Okay, so you're getting a full point per reception added on to the tight end position here. So we actually need to be making an adjustment. Usually if you're playing in a league where you're only getting an extra half a point per reception for the tight end position, there really doesn't matter too much there. Honestly, we're just going to play as if it's a normal format. But no, if you had a chance to read our Dynasty research book, which, my friend, I know you have that option. You are a mother flocker on the site. Just go over to the draft guides tab, go and check out our Dynasty research book. Wrote over 100 pages on that bad boy, and we have an entire chapter on how we should be optimizing for a tight end premium format, whether it's 1.5 points per reception for the tight end, or like this, where you're getting a full extra point. I think that should be able to help out a bit here, but we are definitely going to go heavy on tight end. Went super young in the startup last year and acquired extra picks. Great on the red carpet at the draft. Be proud of how far you've come. You deserve it. Thank you so much, my man. Curious to hear your thoughts on what we should be doing with the picks. Obviously, Bijan at 1, but based on need, I believe JSN will go before the 104, leaving me to choose between Richardson and Stroud, and then going with Jahmyr Gibbs with the other selection. Considering Richardson for the upside and the chance to get Levis at 11 for depth, but curious on if you think we should be going Dalton Kincaid over Will Levis at 11. Thanks in advance. No, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock, as we already said. Let's go ahead and let's pull this team up. So, before we even get to the rookie draft picks, which of course is going to be the main thing here, I do want to highlight the overall roster. I want to look at the league settings a little more in depth. Okay, so we are going to have at quarterback Kyler Murray, not only Kyler Murray, but down there on the bench, Trey Lance. You know, we got to root for our guy, Trey Lance. In reality, with Lance, I wish I could say, okay, he's guaranteed to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers this next year. He's someone we should be extremely excited. Okay, with Trey Lance, I think he has a lot of upside, okay? I think he will be a starting quarterback this next year unless he is literally the biggest bust in NFL draft history. If we go back since the year 2000, the only quarterbacks that have started fewer than 40 games in the NFL that were drafted inside the top 3 picks were literally RG3 and Jamarcus Russell. And even Russell, the biggest bust in probably all of sports history, still started 25. Lance will be starting this next year. I don't know where, but almost regardless, yes, we need to be addressing the quarterback position in this draft. I mean, we really want to be adding someone on. I'd love Lance as a QB3. If he is our only guy there, I don't know. Maybe we're going to have to make a change. Going over to running back, we have Breece Hall, who, keep in mind, yes, with Breece Hall, you have the number 2 running back in Dynasty. We should be pretty damn excited there. But beyond that, I mean, you have Kenneth Gainwell. Then down there on the bench, we really have nobody. I mean, so we have the stud at the running back position, just no depth. Going over to wide receiver, we have Burks, Hollywood, Pittman, Jamison Williams. So here we have a bunch of wide receiver 2s. We don't have any truly elite level player with this range, but in general, I mean, I think that you can see this wide receiver core being enough to have this team competitive. in general, this team has holes pretty much everywhere, right? Like, this team could definitely look to bring in more running backs. We only have Breece Hall currently. This team could definitely look to bring in some additional wide receiver talent. This team could definitely look to bring in another QB. This team could definitely look to bring in another tight end. But given the fact that we have these rookie picks, we have the 101, we have the 104, we have the 105, we're going to be in a position where we can actually turn this team around. Like, even though this team maybe is one quarterback away, one running back away, one wide receiver away, we have the pieces to accomplish those goals. Because 101, like you were already saying, we're bringing in Bijan Robinson. So we're going to be able to bring in Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, to a running back room that, yeah, it doesn't have much right now. We literally have the number 1 and number 2 guy overall in Dynasty. Now, of course, not much depth behind it, but still, we're elite at the very top. And not only elite for this season, but elite for the long term as well. Now, going over to the 104, I know you were saying that you thought we were going to be choosing between Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud. To be honest with you, my man, I was expecting Richardson to be gone by this point. I know you were saying Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to go at either 2 or 3. What I have found in the majority of my Dynasty leagues, and we just posted that Dynasty ADP on the site that you can go through and check out, my man, is I've seen Anthony Richardson going off the board at pick 2, at pick 3. So if you get to take him at 4, which I actually got lucky enough to take him at 4 in one of our Dynasty rookie drafts, I think you have to easily make that draft pick. And then if you're looking at Anthony Richardson as well as Trey Lance, they're very comparable guys in my mind. I mean, these are quarterbacks that have all the rushing upside in the world, that have a ton invested into them. In the case of Lance, it was the 3rd overall pick. In the case of Anthony Richardson, it's the 4th overall pick. And they go to historically well-run organizations. I think that they are comparable, and they are players that have significantly higher ceilings than a quarterback that wouldn't be able to run the ball. But keep in mind, they will have lower floors. But if we're able to add in both of those guys, I would be very confident in saying that we definitely have a 2 QB combo with Kyler Murray, Trey Lance, and Anthony Richardson that we could be excited to start each and every week. Now, going over to the 105, I know you were saying Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be off the board. So if we are picking at 5 and we have the ability to go between CJ Stroud or Jahmyr Gibbs, this is where it gets a little difficult, if I'm going to be honest. Because if we take CJ Stroud, obviously we don't need him. If we take CJ Stroud, we will have a quarterback room of Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, CJ Stroud. It's not really helping us anymore this upcoming season. Whereas if we were to take Jahmyr Gibbs, Gibbs can easily solve the issue that we have with no running back depth. If we add in both Bijan Robinson as well as Jahmyr Gibbs here, and we have Hall, Bijan, Gibbs, we have 3 top 5 running backs in Dynasty. Or obviously Gibbs right on that borderline, but nonetheless, we could feel comfortable contending this upcoming season. So it's a difficult spot to be in where you don't necessarily know if we should be going through and we should be trying to get the player with the better profile for the long term in CJ Stroud, or the guy that's actually going to help us win football games currently. Now, when in doubt, in my mind, we always go with best player available. We always go with CJ Stroud. Now, that's my stance. I've seen in my own rookie drafts a decent amount of people take Jahmyr Gibbs over Stroud, which if you wanted to contend this next season, that's what you'll have to do. And I think it will allow you to contend this next year. It's just a very difficult pick to be making in general. 111, specifically if this is a league where you're getting a full additional extra point per reception, this is a league where I'm taking Dalton Kincaid. If you're only getting an extra half a point per reception, you know what? No, don't really care about taking Dalton Kincaid here. Rookie tight ends don't produce. But if you're getting an extra full point per reception at the tight end position, that completely changes the supply and demand. That actually allows us to put tight ends in that flex spot. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Dalton Kincaid at the 111. Not going to be going with Will Levis there. So in general, I think it's a team that is so interesting in that the infusion of rookies that we are going to be adding in will allow us to contend this upcoming season if we decide to go with Gibbs, but maybe we can have a little more long-term upside if we decide to go with CJ Stroud. So can I please crowdsource this from everybody out here in the live chat? Can y'all please let me know, one, I guess why I'm such a boss, and two, who would you rather have? Are you going to go CJ Stroud or are you going to go Jahmyr Gibbs? Please help me out with this because personally, I have no idea what to do at this point. I think I would probably go with CJ Stroud, but at the same time, I could easily be wrong on this as well. It's like, do we want to contend now? Do we want to go for the long term? Okay, so Graham says Stroud. Darcy says Stroud. Jackson Stroud. Okay, so it looks like overwhelmingly people are saying Stroud. Bingo Bongo, love the name. Sneaks in a Jahmyr Gibbs here. Love the profile pick as well. Trent says Gibbs. Brandon says Stroud. He was drafted second. I think I kind of agree with y'all. I think we are going to go ahead. I think that we are going to take the two quarterbacks with both Anthony Richardson as well as Jahmyr Gibbs. It's just difficult. Now, let's go over to our next team here. This one going to come out from Befferson. Thank you so much, my man. And I don't know if we want to do this on the live stream because this is an MFL team. Personally, I love MFL. I mean, looking at a screenshot of my fantasy league, it does just make me so nostalgic from back when I was truly just a Dynasty fantasy football addict. If y'all think I'm addicted now, you should have seen me back, 7 years ago. But I'm going to skip over this. I'll do this in a personalized podcast. I know people on the live stream will have a hard time following along with the MFL roster. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's check out this one from Alex. Says, hey Mason, 10-team Superflex, start 10, 6-point passing touchdown. The startup draft was before last season, and I went young in the startup. I did make a trade this offseason to address my lack of wide receiver production, which I think really helps our team. Managed to squeak good value, I think, because his team was super old and he wanted to get some young pieces to start the opposite side of the trades rebuild. I'm curious your thoughts and opinions. Keep up the great content, man. You're awesome. Feel free to use on YouTube if you'd like. Thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock. And before we look at the trade, I do want to dive into the actual roster itself because, I mean, if we're going to be looking at the trade, obviously so much of it is going to come down to the exact league settings that we're playing with. So I already see Kenneth Walker, oh dear God, on this roster. But at quarterback, I mean, we're in a good spot starting off. You have Josh Allen. Are you able to build around a quarterback that has an elite ceiling in the short term and long term? And Deshaun Watson. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Desmond Ridder down there at QB3. Not only do we have the two elite level quarterbacks in Dynasty that both give us incredibly high ceilings and floors in the short term and long term, honestly, I think Desmond Ridder is a solid QB3 in Dynasty fantasy football. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not believe the Atlanta Falcons were going to roll into the season with Desmond Ridder as their starter. I don't know why I thought that, right? Like, nobody was projecting out the Atlanta Falcons to take a quarterback at 8. They didn't really do anything in the offseason outside of go through and add in Taylor Heineke. So I feel like I was maybe just being ignorant up until the NFL draft and going, okay, yeah, there's no way Desmond Ridder's the starter in Atlanta. There's no way Sam Howell's the starter in Washington, right? Till once the NFL draft happens, you're not having to sit there and go, wait, what? If Desmond Ridder's the starter in Atlanta, which it looks like he is now, you have to give the man his respect as a Dynasty QB3 because at the end of the day, you have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts, and Desmond Ridder's not a great rushing quarterback, but he can get you 30 rushing yards a game. He can occasionally pick up some rushing touchdowns. So he has some rushing upside, not a lot, but some. And he has phenomenal weapons surrounding him. Now, the offense isn't going to allow a ton of passing volume, which obviously does hurt. But nonetheless, phenomenal QB room. Going over to running back, we have Breece Hall, running back 1 in Dynasty. Kenneth Walker's right on that borderline. We've been tinkering with Kenneth Walker a ton with the rankings on the site. I believe right now we have Kenneth Walker as that low-end RB2. I mean, low-end RB1, high-end RB2. Going down, we have Travis Etienne, another borderline top 5 RB in Dynasty. So we are fine. Like, obviously, Kenneth Walker gets a massive hit with Zach Charbonnet coming in, but we're still young enough to be excited in the long term at the running back position. And also, we should expect good enough production to contend in the short term. Going over to wide receiver, we have Adams for the short term. We have Burks, Christian Watson going into year 2, hopefully increasing their value. We have Gabe Davis in a flex spot. We don't have a lot of depth with this team. Tight end, we have Andrews, so we're elite at tight end, but similar to the other positions, we don't really have much depth in general. So yeah, this team has the 101. This team's able to add in Bijan Robinson, okay? This is ridiculous. So we're going to add in Bijan Robinson, their running back. And honestly, once you add in Bijan Robinson, I mean, I know we've said this time and time again, right? But adding in that truly elite level player that's going to go straight to the top of your roster with Bijan, this is how you fundamentally change dynasty teams, where all of a sudden it's just a completely different shift that you have across the entire roster. You put Bijan Robinson in there at running back 1. Kenneth Walker slides down to a flex spot. Gabe Davis slides down to the bench. So then not only do we have the top end talent, but our depth looks significantly better as well when you just ask everybody else to slide down with their role on the team. And then going over and looking at the 105, this will be something that I need to talk about because we put out the ranking video. We stepped off the plane yesterday, and at that time, I did have Jackson Smith-Njigba as our 5th player off the board. I had JSN at the 105, and I feel like we were very biased with that selection as well. I mean, we said it in the video. I mean, I said it all along that JSN at 5, I love the player. I mean, I love the guy for years, and we actually got to interview him. So, I mean, of course, I'm just going to be over the moon. I'm going to fanboy out over him. And in all of my own Dynasty rookie drafts, I took Jackson Smith-Njigba over Jahmyr Gibbs. But I was fine doing that in my own Dynasty leagues. However, if I'm going to be looking at other teams for other people, and I'm going to try to get y'all the best Dynasty rankings that I can and try to remove my biases, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is the true 105. I've gone back and forth with the rankings on the site. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to set this in stone. Let me pull up flockfantasy.com. I'm going to put, I think maybe we already have it that way, but I'm just going to guarantee that we have Jackson Smith-Njigba behind Jahmyr Gibbs, even if it's a little painful for us to do it, because if we do look at that Gibbs profile, the man does go 12 overall. He's an elite pass catcher. They trade away DeAndre Swift. He's running behind an elite offensive line. Of course, he does have his own red flags. Like, he's not that big, but still at the same time, I mean, that's why he's not in the Bijan Robinson camp. That's why he's not up there as a first-round starter pick. So we did just update these rankings. I'm going to have these guys play, I mean, right next to each other, right? If I'm looking at my overall startup rankings, I have Gibbs right behind Etienne, right ahead of Jackson Smith-Njigba. I have both of them directly ahead of Kyle Pitts. I have Gibbs at 29 and JSN at 30. So going back to this team, 105, operating under the assumption that you have Richardson, Young, Stroud going before you, and we're looking at Jackson Smith-Njigba and Jahmyr Gibbs. I understand the thought process. Maybe we want to go with JSN with this roster in particular because, hell, at running back, we already have Bijan, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne. We have 3 borderline top 5 running backs in Dynasty. Then we have Kenneth Walker as well. So maybe with this team, this is one of those rosters where we can say the 105 maybe makes a little more sense to go ahead and take Jackson Smith-Njigba. We're still not quite sure what we have with Treylon Burks. There's an outside chance Burks just doesn't turn into anything, and it would be really nice to be able to go through and put JSN there. And even if he does, still JSN can be a strong addition to this wide receiver room. So when they're so close for me, that's how I'm going to be using the tiebreak, and that's when I think we can go ahead and when we can take Jackson Smith-Njigba over them. I mean, going down and looking at some other moves that we can make, 201 is a range where it truly is the wild, wild west, as we've already said. I mean, you can go in almost any direction that you were wanting to. Now, if we were looking at this roster in particular at the 201, strictly because we are already so strong at running back, we are already so strong at wide receiver, I would be fine if we wanted to go ahead and take a swing on Will Levis here at the 201, right? If Levis falls and we have, say, Desmond Ridder as our QB3, I think Levis could be a solid addition in that. Really, with Will Levis, we don't exactly know what he's going to be. I mean, before, when we thought he was the top 5 NFL draft pick, we thought he was guaranteed to have the job security. He doesn't even have that at this point. He's going to have to win the job. But in terms of the other guys that you'd be looking at the 201, like in reality, how could Devin Achane really come in and make a significant difference here? Like, Devin Achane's not going to be moving the needle, even at top range of outcomes. The man weighs less than 180 pounds. Dalton Kincaid is obviously decent, but I mean, we have Andrews on this roster. It's not a tight end premium format. I think Levis is the target. Of course, you can pivot over and go Dalton Kincaid if Levis doesn't fall to us at the 201, but I think that's probably going to be the range that we're going with. But overall, great team, my friend. And I think that this is a roster that once we add in those guys at the top end of the rookie draft, I mean, we should probably be the best team in the league. But thank you so much again for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. And as always, if there is anything that I can do for you, my friend, do not hesitate to reach out to us. Real quick, looking at this deal, highway robbery. I mean, phenomenal trade. If we're looking at this, getting the 105 for the 2025 first, easily give me the 105. Give me the second over the third. Give me Adams probably over Ayuk and Pickens. I know I'm a little lower on Ayuk than most people, but great deal to go out there and get Devontae Adams. But let's go ahead and let's move to our next team here. This one coming out from Royal Dutter says, hey there, Mason. Actually, real quick, we have a question in the draft. I know some people were asking us how they get their team submitted here on Discord. So first, you go through, send your name, your Flock Fantasy username in the join here section of Discord. Okay, so let me slide this over real quick just so we can be very clear and make sure that everybody knows how to get their team on here. So go to the setup, join here, right here. I'm highlighting it. Send your Flock Fantasy username. Then the developers will go through. They will link your account. And if you signed up with the Mother Flocker package and promo code FLOCK, then at that point, the developers will unlock the roster submissions channel for you. The roster submissions is going to be right here. And all you'll do is go through and send your team in there, send screenshots, send a message to go along with it, and I'll go ahead and I go in order breaking down these teams. So like this team we're looking at here is from, April 28th, so like 2 to 3 days ago. So please give me a couple days to get to your team, my friend, and give the developers, a few hours to be able to set you up with your perks and set you up and unlock that channel. But all you have to do is send your Flock Fantasy username in the join here, then send your team and roster submissions. But anyway, sorry. Coming out from Royal Dutter, thank you, my friend. This league started up in 2021. In last offseason, we were able to turn Deontay Johnson and David Montgomery into the 101 and 104. Oh, dear God. My running back room is completely barren, but we're pretty stacked at wide receiver and quarterback. I'll have to trim some fat via trades to make room for all the incoming picks somehow. My game plan is to go Bijan at 101, obviously, and then Richardson 103 over Stroud because I think the ceiling's more important when we already have 3 solid starting quarterbacks. Phenomenal point there, my friend. Finally, at the 104, I'm stuck between Gibbs and JSN, but I'm liking the latter more even with a weak running back room. I probably need to look at trading away Freiermuth or Greg Dulcich as well. I initially drafted this team young, traded for guys like Fields, Lamb, etc. I think in year 3, now is when we try to win it all. Feel free to use on YouTube. Thanks for the help. No, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock. And yeah, if you're telling us that we were able to make those trades for the rookie picks, this should be a dominant roster. But starting off with the league settings, specifically how many starters we are going to have here. Quarterback, we're rolling with 1 QB, 1 super flex. Running backs, we have 2. Wide receivers, we have 3. Tight end, we have 1. We have 2 flexes. So we have 10 total starters. And yes, we need help at running back, but we have the rookie picks to address it. Now, going into the quarterback position, we're currently rolling with Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, Deshaun Watson. So we are in a phenomenal situation here at quarterback. I mean, you have arguably 3 top 10 quarterbacks in Dynasty. Arguably, we have 3 round 1 starter picks at the quarterback position. So just like you were saying, if we are bringing in another guy just because we are loaded with rookie picks, CJ Stroud's really not moving the needle here, right? I mean, in reality, are we ever really looking to start CJ Stroud over Herbert, Fields, Deshaun Watson? Probably not. Just go with the guy that has the rushing upside if we really feel like we need to be taking another QB there. Running back Rachaad White and Samaje Perine both kind of win the NFL draft. I mean, you have Rachaad White, obviously, with nobody added to Tampa. Samaje Perine, same thing pretty much with Denver. And if we're going to be looking at Samaje Perine, should be able to start him at the beginning of the season if Javonte Williams presumably misses the beginning of the year. Now, with a roster that's this dominant, do we ever want to be thinking about starting Samaje Perine? Probably not. We don't have anybody down there, but obviously we're going to have the rookie picks where we can go through and where we can be making some plays. I mean, if we are going to be just pulling up these rookie picks in 1 second, we have the 101, 103, 104. In my mind, I think we are obviously going Bijan at 1. And then at 4, I'm fine if we wanted to go Gibbs. I understand we're deviating. I understand that usually we want to go with CJ Stroud, but just the thing is, Gibbs is still an elite level prospect. We add in Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs to this team. Who freaking beats it, right? Going back over to wide receiver. I mean, at wide receiver, you are in a spot where we are just loaded. I mean, we are currently sitting with CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Drake London. So 4 wide receiver ones in Dynasty. We have Donovan Peoples-Jones there as well, but keep in mind, whenever we draft both running backs, you're probably going to be removing Donovan Peoples-Jones from this roster. So, I mean, in general, we're in a very good spots as well. I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, what the hell can I say with this team? I think we draft Gibbs, Bijan, we win this league. I think we draft Gibbs, Bijan, we just win. Now, in terms of making space on this bench, right? This is something that you talked about that we are possibly going to have to play around with. We have Kyle Pitts at tight end, so we have the #1 overall tight end in Dynasty. With Pat Freiermuth, I understand the thought process saying, okay, well, Mason, we need to open up some roster spots on this team. We need to be doing something we can to maybe make a play and not have to cut guys like Terrace Marshall and Nico Collins. I want to make a 2-for-1 trade upgrade in the starting lineup and then be able to bring in some rookies without having to cut players, which is what I think we should do as well. But in terms of selling Pat Freiermuth, I think you're going to have a very difficult time doing that as of today, given the addition of Darnell Washington. I think Darnell Washington is most likely going to have 0 impact year 1. And I mean 0 impact year 1. So if Darnell Washington has 0 impact year 1, knowing what we know about Dynasty players, everybody will forget about Darnell Washington affecting Pat Freiermuth's value going into next offseason. So if anything, I think that Pat Freiermuth is an intriguing buy low candidate at the tight end position. I'm probably going to make a buy low video soon. I mean, we haven't done a buy low video in months, and Pat Freiermuth is the perfect example. So I would just hate to trade away Freiermuth, even though I strongly agree with the sentiment that it makes a lot of sense to make a 2-for-1 deal and possibly go and sell Greg Dulcich and then package him together with someone else and go get an upgrade elsewhere. Like if you wanted to sell Greg Dulcich and Donovan Peoples-Jones and go get a wide receiver that you're a little more excited about, go get Elijah Moore. I think a move like that could make sense if we were trying to open up some roster spots. Now, in terms of what we are going to be doing elsewhere on the roster, I mean, we already looked at what we are doing when it comes to the 101, what we are doing when it comes to the 103, 104. 203, 204 is going to be somewhat interesting because we kind of have to ask ourselves, are these guys better than who we would have to cut, right? And if we look at the 203, yes, the 203, we'll have better options there, whether it's Devin Achane, Tank Bigsby, Roshan Johnson, whoever it is, those guys will be better than Dearness Johnson, Zach Moss, Naheem Hines. Yes, we can go ahead and we can find a cut here easily. Cut Jordan Mason. 303 gets a little more difficult. Like 303, you're going to be looking at like a Sam Laporta. There, maybe, yeah, it's going to be tougher, but we're still going to be looking to cut a few guys. So in general, if we can't make a trade to free up some roster spots, say we have to cut 4 guys to bring in 4 additional starters to this team. Let's just make those cuts right now. I would say Dearness Johnson was somewhat exciting before they drafted Tank Bigsby, but Dearness Johnson at this point looks like we could potentially be moving on from him. I want to keep the wide receivers, honestly. I'd say Nyheim Hines, Jordan Mason. I don't want to tell you to cut all 4 running backs. Like, it just doesn't seem like a good roster allocation move to go through and cut 4 running backs, then all of a sudden go into the season with legitimately nothing. So the 2 running backs that I would feel like cutting the most out of this list would most likely be dear God. I'm going to crowdsource this one. I don't know how to answer this. You have to pick 2 running backs to cut here, ladies and gentlemen. Please spam the chat. Which 2 running backs are you cutting? Hines, Dearness Johnson, Zach Moss, Jordan Mason. In reality, I think these running backs are honestly way worse than the wide receivers, and I don't want to have to say, oh, cut Terrace Marshall, cut Nico Collins. I think I'd rather have the wide receivers in a vacuum over these guys, but we can't cut all the running backs. We're going to have to keep 2 of them. So which 2 running backs are you cutting? Okay, so we have Jordan Mason and Nyheim Hines, Dearness Johnson and Zach Moss, Dearness Johnson and Jordan Mason, Zach Moss and Nyheim Hines, Dearness Johnson and Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason. Cut Johnson and Mason. Mason and Moss. Okay, so it looks like, in general, everybody's all over the place, but the majority of people are saying to cut Jordan Mason. So let's go Jordan Mason, and we'll cut Dearness Johnson now that we have Tank Bigsby going over to, yeah, we'll cut Dearness Johnson now that we have Tank Bigsby going over to Jacksonville. Now, going over to the wide receivers, if we had to cut 2 of these wide receivers, I think we're going to cut Terrace Marshall and Nico Collins, where in reality, I'd still probably rather have Nico Collins over like Zach Moss. But just worst comes to worst, if we have to cut 4 guys, if we're not able to actually do that 2-for-1 deal, which we were looking for. But I think that's all we have for that team. Again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I really hope I was able to help you out there. I would say if we can also just make another deal this year that's equivalent to trading guys like Deontay Johnson and David Montgomery into the 101, 104 in 2024. Let's go ahead and let's do that as well if you can find a way. But thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. As always, if there's anything I can do for you, please do not hesitate to let me know. I'll be super happy to get it done. Here would be the smart thing for me to do. The smart thing for me to do would be break down another team. What I want to do, considering that we've been screaming into a microphone for the past 10 hours, is call it here, come back and live stream again tomorrow. I see that a lot of people just sent their teams in, so we're going to have a lot to look at. I have to cut it. I have to. I don't know if we can do much more. Maybe I'll do another team off the live stream, but yeah, it is getting a little tough here, ladies and gentlemen, for my voice. I don't know how it's going to be tomorrow. But thank you again for being in the vlog. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I truly do appreciate all of you. And if you have not done so already, you better be dropping a like on this live stream. Subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you want access to all of our updated Dynasty rankings, not only mine, but all of your favorite fantasy football creators. If you want access to updated Dynasty ADP, which we just posted on the site. If you want access to your team broken down in a podcast, use promo code FLOCK. That is how you get your team broken down on flockfantasy.com. You'll also get 30% off any subscription, a 2-day free trial. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day. And as always, I don't know what I was going to say. Thank you again.